Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ENC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Where the heck, what the heck, why the heck, where is South Africa going in 2026? I firmly believe that next year South Africa is going to change forever because of a variety of things that are happening. Firstly, we're going to get to the business end of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into police corruption and political interference, and the ad hoc committee also. That will probably end up in suspensions and demotions and firings of very powerful people from the ANC and also within the South African police service in all of its different structures, and will probably also culminate in trials. So that's happening. We're going to get a new National Director of Public Prosecutions, the head of the NPA, the crucial body that is supposed to be leading trials and investigations and criminal charges against people who seem to have allegedly committed high priority crimes. So that's happening. The FIFA World Cup is happening. South Africa is going. We are yet to discover whether South Africans are going to be allowed to go to matches in America to support, because I don't know if you know this, but Trump has literally banned all people from Haiti and Iran from going to America, and Haiti and Iran have qualified for this World Cup. Amidst all of that, at the end of next year, we are going to have a local government election that could absolutely change the future of South African politics. So just a small, non-stressful, non-hectic, non-controversial year coming up for this mad and beautiful country of ours. So on this episode today, we're going to talk about what is going to be happening in 2026, why it matters so much, the complexities, and what we can know about those pivotal events in the future and one day the history books of our country. This is the Quarter Report. It's powered by ENC.com. It's funny that we are basically calling this show 2026 What the Heck, because 2025 What the Heck, the live stand-up comedy show that myself and Yasin Barnes are doing in Cape Town at the Homecoming Center. The opening night is tonight. There are 3 nights. You can still get tickets. The link is on Quicket. You can just search 2025 What the Heck and go and get your tickets. Best way to interact with the show, 0607-613-436. That's the WhatsApp line. The link, if you're watching on YouTube, to the WhatsApp channel is there. Give it a click to keep up with all the latest stuff that we're doing. And of course, www.3bdsnetwork.com to get merchandise. I feel like all of the biggest stories this year have been pre-drinks to the party, for better or worse, the chaos of 2026. So, Madlanga Commission has started. Thank God it did. It will always be remembered as the year that on the 6th of July, General Madlanga Mkhwanazi changed the course of this country by doing that press conference. But Madlanga Ad Hoc was always going to take a while, and we've had all of these huge revelations and huge allegations and evidence and lack of evidence and iconic moments and deeply sweaty, thirsty, wet men like Julius Mkhwanazi and deeply confused or confusing men like Brian Mokhotsi and wild men in Burberry and chains like Cat Matlala and. But all of that's going to come to a head next year. The first report of 3 is only happening allegedly, unless it's delayed, next week, Friday, the 17th of December, which if that report is released to the media and the country, will probably be our last show of the year, special show. By the way, we don't have a show tomorrow, just letting you know in advance, because we are all out for the taping of Maya and Yasin's live show, comedy show. Okay. But all of that's going to come to a head next year. We know from the Zondo Commission recommendations, amongst others, that Cyril Ramaphosa actually quite quickly moves sometimes. I think it was on the first or the second interim report from Zondo that he immediately started making changes, firing people, suspending people, and the likes. But from the beginning of 2026, Ad Hoc is going to wrap up on Madlanga and on the Mkhwanazi cinematic universe. Madlanga is going to be ongoing, but have reports that can be acted on. There's going to be evidence submitted to the NPA, to bodies that can press charges, file charges, and start trials. The consequences, are going to happen in 2026 for people implicated in criminality. That's when we're going to see trials, and we are going to see people potentially end up being convicted of things and end up in orange overalls and the rest. I need to remind you that even before Madlanga and Ad Hoc wraps up, Cat Matlala is on trial right now. His conviction, I'm assuming, but if he is convicted, it's going to happen in 2026 for just this first case that he's already on trial for, and then there'll be later stuff coming. The ANC is in really, really big trouble in all the polls, and it's not looking good, bruv, particularly without Cyril on the ballot in 2026, and he's not going to be on the ballot, obviously, end of his term in 2029. So the ANC is in panic mode. The ANC is jostling and fighting for succession, obviously, unless Cyril is deposed early, which at this point it's looking unlikely, but that Like the 2026 local government election run-up is going to be largely people jockeying for the 2027 ANC conference where they elect a new ANC president, most likely. And so that's going to be happening this coming year. Of course, the local government elections are massive because if the ANC loses Johannesburg to Helen Zille or a team of people lined up behind Helen Zille, the ANC then loses the most powerful, influential, consequential, populous, kind of like true heartland of South Africa's city in the entire country. Massive consequence. If the ANC collapses in a bunch of places across the country, and they might, a lot of these by-elections have been looking very bad for them, that will entrench the narrative that they are on life support, which will make the lead up to 2029 even harder for them. But if they do well in these local government elections, or better than expected in 2026 at the end, then they'll be able to change the narrative and look like they are not a spent force or a dying horse in the lead up to 2029. It's going to fundamentally shape the narrative about the popularity and the staying power of the ANC, and if anybody can meaningfully rival them, or if we'll continue to have this situation where there are political parties rivaling them, but none of them becoming big enough to be truly the big player opposition party. Because of course, the DA is the biggest opposition party, but they only got 21. And the second biggest opposition party is MK, they only got 15. Like, respectfully, if your two biggest opposition parties combined only got 36, and the biggest party got 40, twice nearly what second place got, you don't have a truly powerful opposition singular party superpower yet. But that could, one of those could reveal themselves in the local government election coming. So that's going to be massive for the political future of this country. Of course, the trials to come out of Madlanga, the potential suspensions or firings of major ANC people, maybe Becky Cele will be pushed down and face charges. Maybe Senzo Mchunu will be pushed down and face charges. Maybe a raft of other ANC-connected people will face similar. Maybe they won't face charges, but they will be pushed out because they'll be seen as politically costly to be allowed to continue within the African National Congress. If those things happen, that'll have huge consequences for the power struggles within the ANC. It'll have huge consequences for the perception of the ANC in the South African public, which will influence the polls at the end of 2026. So all of these are interwoven at the same time. And of course, if we see ANC stalwarts, former and current ministers, facing charges in criminal trials, will completely change the perception. Remember, they managed to push Ace Magashule out before this trial with Edwin Sodi over the asbestos scandal in the Free State really started. Are they going to push out and sideline other people who seem to be deeply implicated? Remember, the ANC technically has a step-aside policy. We always forget that, but their step-aside policy on people facing serious corruption allegations should deal with Becky Cele, Senzo Mchunu, and others, frankly, depending on how this unfolds. But maybe they won't. Maybe they won't do that. So this is going to be massively consequential, and we've not even spoken about the FIFA World Cup and Donald Trump yet.
I mean, I think that's also why it's so important for us to keep an eye on the new NDPP.
So I said in the intro, National Director of Public Prosecutions, it's the head of the NPA. Don't know if you've noticed, but Shamila Batohi has, by most approximations, not done a great job. So she claims that she's been trying to reform and fix the NPA and remove the evil, rot, the corrupt, and people who were basically fighting for state capture and Zuma's administration. And she might have been doing that. We're trying to figure that out. But every time she goes in public these days, like earlier this week with the Andrew Chauke case, and when she was at Ad Hoc, she seems to be less competent and seemingly not even like fully on top of her own affidavits, her own claims, her own testimonies, and has been called out for it. And so she has to retire in 2026. And they're picking her successor right now for the person whose job it is to make sure and lead the agency that is supposed to be the ones to pursue criminal trials on behalf of the state against the super criminals, the high priority crimes. So that's why the successor, that's the framing for the successor.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, I remember when Shamila Batohi was halfway through her tenure, I guess, as NDPP, head of the NPA, it was interesting because I think she is the first woman in that job. And I had quite high hopes for all of that. And I feel like the first 5 years, it's 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now. Look that up for me, Dan. Do some fact checking. I'm going to look that up for you. But I remember like the first 5 years were pretty optimistic if it was 5.
She had a great track record. She'd been in impressive places. You're right. Holds office for a non-renewable term of 10 years. But the NDPP must vacate the office upon turning 65, even if 10 years not completed.
Okay. Okay, I don't know her age off hand.
Top of your head.
Yeah, top of my head. I didn't know what part of my body to choose.
Off my shoulder.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it, and I'm pretty sure that she's one of the first heads of the NPA to actually finish the full term.
Yeah, because the NDPP exists or holds their position on the good graces of the president, who can then get rid of them whenever they like.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the previous two, at least, have all never finished the full 10 years. So I do find that fascinating. But I mean, I think the main point for me really is just that we do need to keep an eye on it, because, I mean, we already have this list of names of potential heads of the NPA, and they're obviously going through their panel discussion, or well, interviews, if you will, right now. And we already have some names on there that are pretty questionable. And I think it's really important for us to keep an eye on that based off what happens at Madlanga and Ad Hoc and all that kind of stuff. I know Madlanga is obviously more important for this, but those suggestions, if you will, and whether people are going to act on them is going to be definitely a key thing for me to watch in 2026.
I mean, there are only 6 people on the shortlist. One of them was made NDPP before and rapidly deemed to be a liar, unfit, untrustworthy, and unable to do the job by the Supreme Court, like the Supreme Court of South Africa. And I think the Constitutional Court deemed him to be an improper person. Like, there are questions over whether or not he is trustworthy and reliable enough to even work in law, like as a lawyer, let alone be the NDPP. And those decisions were made and those verdicts were put on him the last time he became the NDPP and was rapidly deposed because of people going, not this guy, surely not this guy. And he was actually a part of the move to get rid of the former NDPP before him, Vusi Bikoli. And the other controversial person who did not do a great job yesterday when she was being interviewed is Andrea Johnson, who we've seen speak, not fabulously, in the ad hoc committee. She is one of the leaders of IDAC, the very, very important Independent Directorate Against Corruption in the NPA. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, we've been speaking about Julia so much recently. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was very clear that he thinks that IDAC is compromised and there are bad apples within it. And Andrea Johnson said that she would come and defend IDAC and clear its name and didn't really do so. Andrea Johnson also was involved in the committee considering the appointment of her husband to a key position. And she recused herself from his interview, but not the other applicants. So she came back to pass judgment on the rivals to her husband for that position. And she literally yesterday apologized and said it was an error of judgment. But I'm not sure that the apology is good enough. I feel like that would be self-evident if your kid was up to win a school prize and you were on the school governing body. Even if you recused yourself for your kids' consideration, being on for their rivals, no one needs to teach you that. That is self-evident, obvious, and true. And you're in this position of power. I don't like it. I don't like it. So that's 2 of the 6. That's a third of the shortlisted people where you're like, And then, of course, there's Hermione Crenier, who was appointed under Shamila Batohi as a key lead prosecutor at the NPA, and then she rage quit because she said she just couldn't work for Shamila Batohi. And now that we know more about Shamila Batohi, you can go, I can see that. But also, if she's got an abrasive and difficult style, which means that she's difficult to work with, or she finds it difficult to work with people she doesn't tolerate, also not great as a leader of an organization. But we don't know the full story there. Maybe she was treated really badly or just went, I see how the die has been cast with Shamila Batohi, I'm out. So we don't know the full story of that.
What I do think is cool, though, is the fact that we have now seen at least, a woman in a position of power like the head of the NPA, which we hadn't seen ever before. And obviously we now also have, a whole bunch of candidates or female candidates that are up for positions of power. Toko Didiza, in the ANC as well. And so I think that's also something to keep an eye on in 2026. Yeah, especially ahead of 2027 NEC and to see how far we get. But it would be really cool to actually see more women in positions of power, whether it be at, the government level or NPA and heads like that.
Chief Justice of the Concourt, Maya, first ever woman Chief Justice of the Concourt. It's beautiful to see this move, particularly considering how few years ago it was that the ANC Women's League that said that South Africa wasn't ready for a woman president. Shout out to that revolutionary feminist body, the ANC Women's League. Okay, let's talk about the FIFA World Cup. So FIFA World Cup happening in America once again, South Africa is going to be front and center because we've qualified. We're in the opening game, although it's against co-host Mexico. That's something a lot of people don't know, is that America's not actually hosting this World Cup. They're co-hosting with Mexico and Canada. So it's very possible that we'll have 1 or 2 games in the States. We could also have all 3 in Mexico. It's possible based on fixture rearrangements that, at least we know that the first game is it's at the Azteca. Dude, that stadium is so cool. Also happens to be the stadium where the whole world learned the Mexican wave. Did you know that?
I actually didn't know that.
1986 FIFA World Cup.
I really hope they bring it back.
Everyone was watching the Mexican the Mexican hosted World Cup, and they noticed that the fans did this thing that then became known as the Mexican wave, and now the whole world knows the Mexican wave. Anyway, so there's going to be interesting dynamics because the House Republicans in the part of the U.S. government are advancing this bill. And even just yesterday, a significant House Republican said that South Africa is our enemy right now, direct quote. And they're trying to sever relations. They're trying to stop any trade deals with us. There are moves to remove South Africa from AGOA. We've spoken about it at length. Go and listen to and watch those podcasts. I'm not going to relitigate that right now. But there's this move for that. And then again, we're going to be front and center in Trump's mind during that World Cup. So I think in 2026, fully expect the continuing absurdities of Trump really believing there's a white genocide in South Africa, really believing that it's just so terrible to be white and privileged and rich enough to own a farm in this country. And I think in 2026, you can expect more real world consequences than just silly bad mouthing. Of course, the G20 in Miami, Florida, and whether we get to go and whether or not all of our G20 allies who have just firmly stood with us, created trade deals with us, complimented us on our incredibly wonderfully successful G20 in Johannesburg, and basically flipped Trump the wink nudge bird, how they're going to respond and act next year is going to be super interesting if Trump continues to say South Africa can't come to the G20 in Miami.
And keep an eye on the World Cup because we'll find out if Messi can score a goal with a ball that is the first ball since our World Cup, the Jabulani ball, that is similar in its aerodynamics.
Really?
I watched a video the other day.
Interesting factoid.
Yeah, because apparently like a lot of the balls usually, I don't know if the word is vertices inside it, but you know the different like sides, it's not perfectly round, right?
Yeah. But the Jabulani ball moved crazy.
Yeah, because apparently it only had like, I don't know if, again, I don't know the scientific terms now, and I don't fully recall, but it had like 3 points within it, whereas I think the most of the balls that have been used over the years, I think have like 5 or 7.
Oh.
And so it's actually way rounder.
Oh, interesting.
And I think the stat at the time was like Messi had like 26 shots, 0 goals.
Really?
At the FIFA World Cup in 2010.
In 2010? Is that so?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see.
Which is why there's the clip of Yamal missing all those things in that advert they were trying to film.
Yes.
Because apparently the theory is the ball is very similar to that Jabulani ball back then.
Right. That's super interesting.